There's a tree that feeds 2 adults every single year. No plowing. No pesticides. No replanting. Just one tree, for 70 years. It laughs in the face of droughts that shrivel wheat and storms that flatten corn. While modern crops beg for fertilizer, this one just grows, unbothered, unbought, untamed. For over 3,000 years, entire civilizations survived because of it. It gave food, shelter, tools, even medicine. And yet, they tried to turn it into a weapon. Not a sword. Not a gun. But something quieter. Something far more sinister. They didn't want to eat it, they wanted to use it. To control. To ration. To feed the enslaved just enough to keep them alive, and working. This tree, this gift from nature, became a tool of bondage. Or so they thought. What they didn't count on, was the rebellion. Because the enslaved, they rejected it. Not once. Not in protest. But for decades. They would rather starve than surrender to what it symbolized. They fed it to pigs. They let it rot. They refused to break. And somehow, in that rejection, the tree gained something no empire could take away: dignity. What kind of tree could feed nations, spark a mutiny, defy an empire, and still survive in silence, waiting for the world to need it again? That's where this story begins. It doesn't look like much at first. A bulky green fruit with a scaly skin, growing on the limbs of a towering tree. But inside, nature's quiet masterpiece. This is breadfruit, scientifically called Artocarpus altilis, and it might be the most underrated food source on Earth. You plant it once. Just once. And it feeds you for life. No fertilizer. No irrigation. No replanting. One tree yields 450 pounds of fruit every season. That's 14,000 pounds per acre, without lifting a finger. In raw productivity, it nearly outpaces corn. It blows past rice, wheat, and potatoes. And it does it while rebuilding soil, not destroying it. Ancient Pacific Islanders didn't just eat breadfruit. They built their world around it. It was their pantry, their pharmacy, their home. They roasted it over open flames, baked it in earth ovens, ground it into flour, fermented it in underground pits where it could last for 20 years. Some even say it never spoiled, only got better. They carved their houses and canoes from its termite-resistant wood. Its massive leaves offered shade from scorching heat. Breadfruit wasn't just food. It was freedom, freedom from hunger, from farming, from fear. A single tree could feed a family and then some. A cluster of them. A civilization. While the West was still struggling with crop rotation and backbreaking harvests, entire island nations were thriving on a food system that never asked for more than patience. No chemicals. No plows. Just sun, rain, and time. It was a living food vault, immune to famine and designed to outlast generations. But while islanders saw a sacred gift, someone else saw a loophole, a way to feed the starving without paying a cent. And once that idea took root, breadfruit would be dragged halfway across the world, into the heart of a humanitarian crisis. Because the empire was hungry. And the enslaved were starving. And someone thought this tree might fix both. By the 1780s, the British Empire was starving, not in the drawing rooms of London, but in the brutal heat of the Caribbean. On sugar plantations in Jamaica, death was spreading faster than disease. Hurricanes wrecked crops. Droughts followed, turning soil into dust. And when the American Revolution cut off food exports from the colonies, the British West Indies were left stranded. 15,000 enslaved Africans died, not from rebellion, not from war, but from starvation. The plantations, once flooded with wealth, were now gasping for survival. And the masters? They didn't care about nourishment. They just needed something cheap. That's when Sir Joseph Banks stepped in, the king's favorite botanist, and the man who once sailed with Captain Cook to Tahiti. There, he'd tasted something strange and soft, roasted over an open flame, breadfruit. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't glamorous. But it was starchy, filling, and more importantly, abundant. Banks remembered the massive trees in Tahitian villages, loaded with fruit, enough to feed entire families. He did the math: 1 tree equals survival. And unlike grain, breadfruit didn't need plows, seeds, or labor. It just grew. To the empire, it was perfect. Free food, with no strings. Grow it once, and forget it. Banks made his pitch to the crown: bring breadfruit to the Caribbean, feed the enslaved, stabilize the plantations, and save the empire's cash crop, sugar. King George III didn't hesitate. He commissioned a ship. A mission. A man. The year was 1787. The ship was the HMS Bounty. And the man was Lieutenant William Bligh, a name the world would never forget. But what no one saw coming was that this tree, and this voyage, would spark one of the most infamous mutinies in naval history. Lieutenant William Bligh was a man on a mission, and his cargo wasn't gold, or gunpowder, or prisoners. It was plants. 1,015 breadfruit trees, carefully potted, watered, and secured in the converted great cabin of the HMS Bounty. The crew nicknamed it the Floating Forest, a jungle at sea, destined to save the starving plantations of Jamaica. For 5 long months, Bligh and his men lived in Tahiti, tending to the trees, learning local customs, and filling their ship with life. But something else was growing beneath the surface: resentment. Bligh, known for his precision and discipline, ran the ship like a ticking clock. The crew, many of whom had grown fond of the easy island life, grew restless. They resented the heat, the cramped quarters, the endless attention paid to these trees. To them, breadfruit had become the captain's true obsession, and the men just background noise. On April 4, 1789, the Bounty finally set sail for the West Indies. But it would never arrive. Just 3 weeks later, Fletcher Christian, Bligh's former friend and trusted officer, led a mutiny that would echo across centuries. In the dead of night, Christian and a handful of allies seized control of the ship. They locked up loyalists, stormed the deck, and handed Bligh a lifeboat. Bligh and 18 loyal men were cast adrift in the middle of the South Pacific, left to die in a 23-foot open boat, with no maps, no compass, and no mercy. The breadfruit trees, torn from their pots and thrown overboard. All of them. Hundreds of living trees, destroyed in defiance. Food that was meant to feed the starving was fed to the ocean. It should have ended there. But William Bligh was not a man who surrendered. After sailing 3,600 miles to safety, through storms, starvation, and uncharted seas, he returned to England alive. And the empire? It wasn't done either. Because just 2 years later, they sent him back. This time with more ships, more men, and a new obsession with making the tree obey. When Bligh returned to Jamaica in 1793, he brought with him not 1 ship, but 2. Not hundreds of trees, but over 2,100 breadfruit plants, crammed onto the HMS Providence like prisoners. The voyage was brutal. Salt spray scorched the leaves. Water was rationed, for the trees, not the men. By the time they docked, only 678 plants had survived. But that was enough. The empire had succeeded. Breadfruit had arrived. They planted it everywhere, across every parish, in botanical gardens, on plantation grounds. It grew fast. It yielded heavily. It needed nothing. The British cheered. Plantation owners called it a miracle. The enslaved, they said, would finally have food. But they miscalculated one thing: what breadfruit had come to represent. To the enslaved, it wasn't nourishment. It was a symbol of everything they were forced to endure. It wasn't the taste, it was the intention. Breadfruit wasn't offered. It was a blank canvas for a hungry, healing culture. 2 generations had passed since the first trees arrived. And now, with slavery abolished, the fruit no longer carried the same chains. Cooks began to experiment. Families roasted it in open fires, slathered it in butter, cracked black pepper over its golden skin. They fried it in oil until it crisped like chips. Boiled it into thick, hearty stews. Mashed it into porridge, baked it into flour for bread, fritters, and cakes. What was once rejected became cherished. Breadfruit moved from shame to soul, becoming the quiet backbone of a cuisine born from survival. This wasn't just about flavor. It was about reclaiming the narrative. Turning something that once symbolized control into a symbol of creativity, identity, and endurance. In kitchens across the Caribbean, a silent revolution unfolded. Every dish was an act of defiance. A rewriting of memory. A declaration that what was once forced would now be owned. But even as breadfruit carved out a new place in Caribbean culture, something darker was happening far beyond the islands. Because in the modern world of chemicals, patents, and monocrops, a tree that grows without asking permission, that's a problem. Breadfruit doesn't play by modern rules. And that makes it dangerous, not to people, but to profits. It grows too easily. Too abundantly. It doesn't need chemicals. Doesn't demand replanting. It can't be patented. It doesn't fit inside the boxes of industrial agriculture. And for the companies that build empires on seeds, fertilizers, machines, and control, that's a threat. See, modern farming runs on dependency. You buy the seeds. Every year. You buy the chemicals. Every season. You lease the land, use the machines, follow the system. That system doesn't want trees that last 70 years and feed families without help. It wants products. Cycles. Extraction. Breadfruit. It refuses. Its fruit ripens at different times, no good for machine harvesting. Its shelf life is short, bad for shipping and storage. It regenerates from root suckers, no annual seed sales. It flourishes in poor soil, no need for synthetic fertilizer. It fixes nitrogen, restores ecosystems, and grows in places industrial crops would call hopeless. Breadfruit's very existence questions the foundation of global food systems built on scarcity and dependence. So instead of embracing it, the system labels it invasive, unreliable, too traditional. In some regions, it's even classified as a problem plant. Not because it spreads, but because it succeeds without permission. Breadfruit doesn't just grow, it thrives outside the machine. And that machine doesn't forgive disobedience. But just as in the past, breadfruit found its defenders. One woman, in particular, decided to fight for the tree the world kept trying to forget. In a world obsessed with engineered seeds and billion-dollar patents, one woman dared to ask a simple question: what if the answer isn't in the lab, but already growing wild in someone's backyard? Her name is Dr. Diane Ragone, and for over 2 decades, she crisscrossed the Pacific, visiting island after island, village after village, collecting the forgotten wisdom of a food the world tried to erase. She wasn't after trends. She was after truth. And what she found was staggering: hundreds of breadfruit varieties, each with its own flavor, texture, history. She gathered samples from over 600 trees, some passed down through generations, guarded like family heirlooms. This wasn't just science, it was cultural resurrection. In 2003, she founded the Breadfruit Institute at the National Tropical Botanical Garden in Hawaii. Her goal was simple: protect the tree the world forgot. And since 2008, the Institute has distributed over 100,000 breadfruit trees across more than 40 countries, from the Caribbean to Central America, from Pacific Islands to parts of Africa and Asia. Schools, churches, farms, public housing, all planting the same tree that once fed kings and rebels alike. But this isn't just about food. It's about the future. Climate models now predict that by 2050, over 30% of global crop yields could collapse under rising heat and instability. Breadfruit? It's already survived worse. It thrives in scorching temperatures. It regenerates after hurricanes. It grows in depleted soil, needs no fertilizer, and sequesters carbon while it feeds people. It's everything industrial agriculture said was impossible. And here's the twist: the same tree once rejected as slave food is now seen as a weapon against hunger, against climate collapse, and against dependence on chemical-heavy farming. Breadfruit doesn't ask for anything. It just grows. And in a world running out of time, that might be exactly what we need. They tried to use it as a chain, a ration, a weapon. But breadfruit never played by their rules. It wasn't built to obey. It was built to endure. What started as a tree planted in island soil became a symbol of rebellion. It fed civilizations, sparked mutiny, survived rejection, and outlasted empires. It was forced onto the enslaved, and later embraced by the free. It was dismissed by industrial giants, and revived by scientists, farmers, and families who saw what it truly was, a lifeline hiding in plain sight. Breadfruit doesn't promise riches. It doesn't need chemicals, factories, or headlines. It simply stands there, quiet, abundant, and unstoppable. It refuses to die, because it was never built for this economy. It was built for us. For survival. For community. For freedom. And now, as the climate grows unstable, as food systems buckle under pressure, as the world races to find answers, the truth is humbling. The solution may not be in the next invention, but in a tree that's been waiting 3,000 years. Breadfruit isn't just food. It's memory. It's resistance. It's legacy. And it's still growing.